So welcome everybody to the Intergenerational Linkages group here. We are a national community of practice, and today we have a guest from Men's Sheds Alberta here today. So sorry folks, am I echoing on anybody else's thing here? Testing, testing, testing. Okay, now it seems to be fine. Maybe it was an echo with somebody else's mic off. I don't know why that was. Okay, anyway, as I was saying, we're National Community Practice, and today we have a guest from Men's Sheds Alberta who's going to talk about Men's Sheds Alberta as well as Men's Sheds Canada a little bit here, and how Men's Sheds are creating these intergenerational spaces across Canada and the world. So just to get going, let me just share my screen. All right. So, I'm just going to start us off with a land acknowledgement before we get going here. So, in the spirit of our journey to promote reconciliation, we'd like to honor the truth of the shared history and acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. And I am tuning in from Mohkinstsis, which is also known as Calgary, and that's on the Treaty 7 territory, which is the traditional home of the Blackfoot Confederacy, including the Kainai, Piikani, and Siksika nations, as well as the Yahe Nakota, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney nations, and the Dene from the Tsuut'ina Nation. I'm also tuning in from Métis Regions 5 and 6, so I'd like to acknowledge the keepers of those lands that I'm tuning in from, and my privilege of being able to grow up and live and work in this space. And then also acknowledging that because we are national community practice, so we're tuning in from all across Turtle Island here and recognizing the traditional lands of all of the different regions that we're tuning in from. A little bit of housekeeping. I guess keep yourself muted when somebody's presenting, since we got a bit of echo already here. But we'll have a chat time here after Punch is done chatting, and you can have that chance to unmute yourself or toss your questions in the chat. Oh, sorry, folks. I don't know why that happened. Let's just start this. There we go. I apologize. Then you can also, yes, you could put your questions in the chat. You're welcome to give your reactions or raise your hand throughout. And we're going to upload this onto the CORE Alberta and National and BC platforms afterwards, as well as on our Healthy Aging Alberta YouTube. This group is supported by the CORE Alberta Platform, even though it's a national community of practice. And you can also find the intergenerational group on CORE National. And the work is supported by Healthy Aging Alberta, which is backboned by United Way of Calgary and area. The core platforms, we have 3 core platforms: BC, Alberta, and National, and they stand for Collaborative Online Resources and Education, and they provide that space to share resources, have different groups or communities of practice, share trainings and events, work on things like policy together or other collaborations. So they're really a lovely space there to connect across the sector. And I will have a CORE 101 training next week with BC and National, and I are hosting a CORE 101 training. So you're welcome to come attend. It's in our event calendar on all 3 platforms for next Thursday, I believe, in the morning. The morning in Calgary time. I think it ends up being in the afternoon if you're in Eastern Canada. And just to introduce our group here before we get going. So Betty isn't with us today. She's she had something. But she's the intergenerational and consultant for Good Links Intergenerational Practice, and she's based out of Calgary, Mohkinstsis with me here. Jane Atkins, who is also not able to join today, is the co-chair for Sundre Senior Spruce Society and is based out of Sundre, Alberta. Myself, I'm engagement and communication specialist at Healthy Aging Alberta, and I'm based out of Calgary. Rochelle Patil is the social gerontologist for the NORC Innovation Center at UHN in Toronto, and Deanne Druin is the co-founder of Generations out of Ottawa and Victoria. So that is our group, and we're always open to new folks who want to take leadership in this intergenerational community practice space. So you can always reach out to us if you want to discuss more and take a heavier role in intergenerational community practice leadership. So now I'm going to introduce Punch. And so Punch is the chairman of the Alberta Men's Sheds Association. And he retired in 2009 after a long career of community public service. In his early career, he worked at the Winnipeg YMCA in camping and outdoor education. He's been a private consultant and spent 30 years with the Alberta Public Service, with an emphasis on recreation, sport, and community development, and the voluntary sector, public libraries, and the Wild Rose Foundation. He's active in social media, editing the Men's Sheds Across the World newspaper, and since retirement, Punch has been actively advocating for the development of men's sheds in Alberta. So, without further ado, I'll pass it over to you, Punch.
Mute. Sharing screen. Are we good?
Yes, we're good, Punch.
Okay, so this good morning to everyone, and I'm speaking to you from Alberta. So I will try and address questions if you have questions for any of the other provinces, and I'll touch base on that as I go through the presentation. I'm going to try to go through this fairly quickly so that we have lots of time for you to ask questions. Now, let's see what happens when I click a button here. Okay, so we had in the beginning, this men's sheds started in Australia about 32 years ago. And they started as a result of a major economic downturn in Australia, much the same as we have seen a number of times in Alberta. And during that downturn, there was significant unemployment. Men were tossed from their jobs. The rate of depression skyrocketed, as well as the rate of suicide went up. There was an individual watching her dad, a woman watching her dad suffer through this process. And he had, in the back of his yard, he had a garden shed, which he had always treated as a place to regenerate. It was a happy place for him where he went to fix things, and it was just his garden shed. Well, when he went into this severe depression, she was pretty worried because of what he might end up doing to himself. So she got some colleagues together and said, my dad has this happy place, or used to have this happy place, where he went to find his joy, and it's gone. He's just abandoned it. And these other women said, well, we're seeing similar things with our male relatives. They said, well, I wonder if we could replicate that somehow, because most of these guys, when they lost their jobs, they also lost their group of friends, because their friends were based around their jobs. So these three women went out and got access to a fairly large garage. They put some tools in it, and they put some uh, old lawnmowers and different things to fix. And they put in a ginormous coffee pot. They invited 10 guys that were suffering the same as this woman's dad. So they came the first week and they drank all the coffee, uh, but nothing happened with the fixing of the lawnmowers. And the guys they weren't too excited with each other. But anyway, they came back the second week. And the women noticed there was a little more uh, activity, and the men were talking more. And by the third week, when the guys came, they were actually excited to come. And so they got into the shed, they drank the coffee again. They seemed to be happier, they were laughing, and some things got fixed. And when they left, they were happy, they were excited. Came back the fourth week and the fifth week and the sixth week, and the women noticed that now these guys had been talking to each other. They were sharing stories of the jobs they used to have and looking forward to doing some new things. And what the women noticed was they were way happier, and they were using the phrase, we've got a sense of purpose now. They had a sense of purpose. So these women named that garage a men's shed because of the relation to the garden shed. So that was in the late 1990s. The very first shed started in Australia. And from there, they now have 1,200 sheds in Australia. They now have the government providing them with ongoing funding to their national organization as well as individual sheds. So it was quite a success in terms of this experiment to bring men together. And what they discovered was that women talk face to face, men talk shoulder to shoulder. And they talk shoulder to shoulder when they're doing something. And so when they started talking about, well, what's a men's shed? And it's simply a space. It doesn't have to be this particular building or a building like this. It could be, and you've all seen this to some degree across Canada, the gathering of men in the morning, either in an A&W or a McDonald's or a local coffee shop. Those, in fact, could be the start of men's sheds. But the guys love to gather to do projects. And so you can see the range of sheds, everything from something in the UK with a historic building to a small garden shed. These are the kinds of things that the men might gravitate to. So the simplicity of this is that, what is a shed? It's somewhere to go, it's something to do, and someone to talk to. And especially, it's a place, and when we think about Cheers, the old television show Cheers, everybody knows your name. The history, as I said, started in Australia, the 1,200 sheds. There's 135 sheds now in New Zealand, the United Kingdom. There's 65 in Northern Ireland, 200 in close to 200 in Scotland, 70 in Wales, 640 some odd in the UK, and Ireland itself has 450 sheds. And as I said before, we came on the air, there are 120 she sheds in Ireland. There's 25 sheds in the UK. In the Europe proper, there's no real count. Uh, there's two in Kenya. There's four in Iceland. There's a new shed just started in Japan, and there's one in South Africa. I discovered two in Estonia, and there are some in Poland. And we have 100.
Right.
Is Punch frozen for other folks here?
Yeah.
All right. Well, while he's just unfreezing, I'm just going to share the link to Men's Sheds Canada website in the chat here, so that you could check out the Men's Sheds Canada website. And I guess we'll wait for him to get
150
back.
sheds approximately in Canada.
Oh no. And he's out. Hey, Punch.
On my back.
Yeah, you're back. You're freezing up there.
Okay, so what's the solution?
Um,
Okay, do you want me to leave the slides off and I'll just speak?
sure, that's fine. That might help with the overwhelm. I'll just spotlight you here.
Okay. Okay, so the first sheds in Canada came in 2011. They were started in Winnipeg by Doug Mackey, and they spread across the country, primarily in BC. BC got a really great start with the support of United Way BC and invisibly with the provincial government in BC. I think they're approaching 70 or 75 sheds in BC with about, as I said, 41 sheds in Alberta and about a dozen in Manitoba and a similar number in Ontario. And now there are several sheds in Quebec. As far as provincial associations across the country, we have BC has an association, Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, and a new association just started in Quebec. There are sheds also in New Brunswick and a couple being tested out in Nova Scotia and one shed in Marystown, Newfoundland. So those are roughly where the sheds are. What do these guys do when they start a shed? They find out, usually it starts with two or three guys. They've heard about the concept from somewhere. They decide that they think they want to do something like that, but they may have different ideas about what they want to do. And so when they finally settle on it, the range of things that they do in sheds is number one would be they would do things that have to do with making sawdust. So they are focused on woodworking. There are sheds that do bike repair, restoration of bikes, rescuing bikes from dumps, and retrofitting them for little kids who've never had a bike. Or in Calgary, they do a program where they retrofit the bikes for immigrant kids who've never had a bike who are in high school. The uh, the sheds can be started by men of any age. The fellow that started the first shed in downtown Edmonton was 82 years old, and he told me, Punch, we don't do power tools. Uh, we don't think it's safe. We kind of got the shakes, but we're coming up with something else. So their idea, they brought me into their location, which was in a senior's residence, and on the table was a puzzle, and all the guys were sitting around, and they were all working on this puzzle. The fellow that was organizing the table, he saw what happened when I came in and saw the puzzle table, and he saw my eyes roll, and he looked up at me and he shook his finger and he said, "Punch, you do not know what kind of conversation goes on around this table.
Mhm.
This is shoulder to shoulder, the same as the guys in a workshop. These guys are shoulder to shoulder working on puzzles. And don't be thinking it's not important." And so the range of activities is quite exciting when you think about it for individuals. Sheds have, um, some of them have multi-chapters or multi-units in them. One with a group of guys that's working on woodworking, another group of guys who might be doing bike repair. There's guys that do scale modeling, and there's even sheds that have book clubs associated with them. So there's quite a range. The uh, intergenerational aspect of this, um, men sheds are open to all men. So the youngest we've had is 18, and the oldest is 93. And so there's intergenerational things that are happening all the time. And when you have a shed that's made up of some older guys and some younger guys, the dynamic in there is pretty amazing. Some of the younger guys have never experienced working with hand tools. The older guys, they're not excited about working with all of these battery operated hand tools. And so there's a learning experience takes place between the two. And usually the exchange of information is old guys talking to the young guys about these hand tools that they worked on and utilized, and even some of them bring them to show them what they're like. And the young guys are helping the older guys with their technology. They're Most of the old guys are not maximizing the use of their cell phone if they've got a cell phone. And the younger guys are teaching them how to use those cell phones. So there's an interesting dynamic takes place there. The shed guys across the country, uh, and this was it started off as Father's Day, in recognition of Father's Day. They wanted to have what they called a build. So they said, in the first ones were done here in Edmonton, and they had prepared kits of birdhouses, and they made 4 or 5 different models of birdhouses, and they had their shed guys invited everybody in the neighborhood to come, and they made up the first year they made up 40 kits, and they used all 40. And dads and grandfathers would come with the kids, um, and they would have this kit to work on, and they would work together on building birdhouses. So that was a sort of a 1 day intergenerational experience. And the other aspects of intergenerational initiatives were started by or helped facilitated by an organization here in Edmonton called SAGE. And they had connected the men in the shed that was located at SAGE uh, with a school program where they started to write letters back and forth, and they had a pen pal program going. And they thought, well, that worked out really well, uh, but it wasn't really enough. So they got permission from the school to have the men come to the school and playing the role of grandfathers, because many of these kids didn't have grandfathers. So the grandfathers would go in and they would do sessions in reading where they would read stories to the kids. Um, but the most exciting part for the kids was when the grandfathers would show up and they would bring stuff from their past. So we put together a collection of old stuff that these kids would never have seen before. Many of them never saw a dial telephone.
Mhm.
And so they had a dial telephone and they had lots of conversations around this type of thing. Or they brought old-fashioned radios. And the kids had never seen these type of radios. And then they had other artifacts from their past that they shared with the kids, and they had all kinds of discussions with them. Old money, bringing a dollar bill, or in fact bringing sample $2 bills, if you can remember that, the $2 bill. So these were things that they did to connect old folks with younger kids. And another aspect of the intergenerational program was initiated in Vernon, BC. And in that particular program, they high school came to the shed and said, "Look, we got some kids in high school that don't want to be here. It's we're just not we're not challenging them. They're being disruptive. Do you think you could take a couple and just see what happens?" Well, they brought these young men over to the shed and they just sort of adopted them and they mentored them and they involved them in projects that they were doing. And so the kids were being, these younger high school kids were being shown how to use power tools, how to use the equipment, and they got involved in making projects. Well, it was so successful that the high school said, "Look, can you take more?" Well, how many more? Well, can you take 10 or 12? And they said, "No way. We can handle two at a time." So that program continues today, but they just have a small number of young people in the program. The uh, the first shed in Edmonton had, and I referred to the 18-year-old, and the 18-year-old came with his uncle, and he was developmentally delayed. And if that's the right word, I'm not sure if I'm
Mhm.
politically correct here. But he was developmentally delayed, and he was taught different things how to use different things in the shed, and not that they were really nervous about the power of the table saw. So he didn't get to use the table saw for quite some time, and that was done under extreme supervision. But they asked him, "Well, what do you want to do? What's something you really want to do?" And he says, "Well, I want to learn to paint." And so from his request to learn to paint, a whole new process was instigated in Edmonton, where they started paint nights, and they had a fellow from an indigenous shed who was an artist come and teach uh, painting, how to start paint. And these things became quite popular in Edmonton in terms of paint nights for the guys, and then it was paint nights for the guys and their wives, and then it became paint initiatives for the guys and different organizations. And so it was all started because of this one young man's desire to learn to paint. So that's a range of some of the intergenerational things that are going on. Now, across the country, there could be all kinds of other things that are going on. And it's something we should probably spend more time doing an inventory of all of the examples of different things because the sheds are so different across the country. Some of them do repair projects with social housing, and they may have young people involved in that. Um, let's see. Questions. Have you got any questions? Since I've lost my cheat sheet. No questions?
Thank you, Punch. We'll just give folks a moment to sink in. I did put a video in the chat too, folks, about our last event we hosted. Punch and I hosted how to start a men's shed too. So there's a full video on how to do that in the chat and the Men's Sheds Canada website.
Yeah, and if you're interested in learning how to start a shed or referring somebody to
this today. So welcome everybody to the Starting a Men's Shed.
That was somebody
Whoa.
playing my voice on the video. I just muted them, but
Somebody's into it already.
yeah, somebody's into it already. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm hearing my voice.
The goal for sheds in Canada is that by 2032, Men's Shed Canada would like to have 1,000 men's sheds in Canada. So that's pretty ambitious for right now because in Canada we do not have the support of any governments other than the BC government. Across Australia, as I said, they have a men's health strategy and policy, and they have a 10-year plan for that. They have a similar initiative in Ireland, and they're just about to announce one in the UK. In Canada, the only people that were interested in men's health were the Conservative Party, and they had an MP by the name of Matt Genereux working on that for the last 2 years. And so he was about to put forward a bill when the House was prorogued for the election. So we have our fingers crossed that there will be some initiatives for men's health, and there are some differences. And I'm assuming that this is there are not many men on this call, but you can imagine the challenge that I have when I am trying to raise awareness of getting men to go for health checks. Women have, okay, I'm going to backtrack here. In one of my previous lives, I was responsible for public libraries in Alberta, and women that are librarians are in a high risk category for breast cancer. And it's because of the exposure to inks that they have this, they're in this situation. So as a result, we supported Run for the Cure every September, early October, and the women came up with some incredible T-shirts, and the word boob was quite prominent. So when you're promoting breast cancer, there's lots of unique things that are done to promote breast cancer and prevention. It's a little different when you drop down below the belt for men in terms of prostate cancer and testicular cancer. And so when I talk about it with men, it's check your sack. That becomes the phrase. It's sort of women are taught how to check for lumps. Well, the guys have to do the same thing, but in a different part of their body. Anyway, I'd like to hear some thoughts about what you people are doing in an intergenerational work that you are involved in.
So, Punch, we have a question here. People can maybe think about how they want to share some of their efforts, or maybe how they're planning to engage more men in their efforts in an intergenerational way. But we have a question here around the location of sheds. Were they mostly in urban communities, rural communities? It depends. Like what do you kind of find here in Canada?
Smaller communities, lots in rural Canada or in smaller communities. The challenge is that when you're in a big city, in a large urban area, and this is common right across the world, the finding space is very difficult, especially if you want space to have a bit of a workshop. So we found that it's a little bit easier to find space in rural Canada. The use of historic facilities, the use of old government buildings like tourism information centers, things like that. In the cities, in Edmonton, we have working with the Edmonton Federation of Community Leagues. There are 160 plus community leagues in Edmonton. They're neighborhood based, and many of them have facilities. And so those community leagues are working with us to establish men's sheds. Initially, therefore, they just say, okay, we'll give you space for coffee. And then they realize, oh, these guys are helping out around the place. Maybe we should give them a little more space. And then eventually it becomes they convert some part of the building, an old skate shed area or something, and they have a workshop. But predominantly, it seems easier to do it in rural Canada.
Thanks so much, Punch. Sheila asked a question about best bets for funding for power tools.
The best source for funding?
For power tools specifically.
Okay, so when you start a shed in Canada, each shed gets $1,000 for startup expenses. Some of them use the money to get insurance and some initial tools. New Horizons program has been a great source of funding for tools. Your community, many communities have community foundations, and they will sometimes provide money for tools. There's companies that have not a direct program, but through some of their employees, they distribute older tools. They're still power tools, and they're still maybe battery operated, but they've got new versions of them. So when the old version is being discontinued, then they allow people to access those tools.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And you mentioned, Punch, like when somebody starts a shed officially, then they get this grant. So I know Stephanie put in the chat what does starting a shed look like, but could you quickly summarize, if possible, like what does officially starting a shed mean? What does that look like?
It means 2 or 3 guys agreeing that they want to start a shed and have taken some initial steps to develop a plan of what are they going to do. And once they get that far, then they can apply for the $1,000.
Okay.
Now, I just want to mention another source of tools. When women lose their partner, and this usually, it could be any age, but older women, they may have inherited a garage full of tools, a workshop, and they may call the men's sheds to say, "Hey guys, can you help me out here? I want to get rid of these tools."
Mm-hmm.
So that's one source. That's one way. Uh, so there's a definite sorting process because many of us have very discombobulated workshops. Uh, and if you know if you've been in your husband's workshop or your dad's workshop or your grandfather's workshop, you may have experienced this. There, there are some men who are extremely micro and they're thinking and they have everything very well organized. But I would say more than a few are discombobulated.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Punch. Before I go on to Deanne's question, just want to make a comment from the chat here from Joanne. She said, in situations where older adults might be at risk of elder abuse or experiencing abuse, Men Sheds a referral for her and her organization to help with social isolation. So thank you. So she sent that message forward. Deanne, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I was just curious, Punch, if there's a link to tool libraries.
Okay, so there are lots of tool libraries across the country, and that's another source of tools for especially for sheds that are just starting out if they want to borrow tools to get going. In Fredericton, New Brunswick, there is a tool shed or tool library, and that tool library was instrumental in starting the men's shed in that province in terms of getting it started. So there is a positive relationship that can exist between the two, but they don't always naturally find each other. And I don't know why that is.
Stephanie put a question in here, which is really interesting. It's asking about if any of the groups have done like a call out for donations specifically for different things rather than requesting funding, but just a call out for donations.
Yes, there's all kinds of different ways that people call out for funding. Some do it more publicly than others. Sometimes they are, you have to be careful what you wish for because they get lots of donations of tools. So then we have to find a way to store them. An example would be in a few days, I will be turning 80 years old. And so instead of people sending, buying me gifts or bringing me bottles of scotch, we've asked them to donate to the men's shed. So that's another way of people, and you've seen it on Facebook where people celebrate their birthday and they ask you to donate to something. So those are some ways of doing it. There's always people that are willing, once they find out about the shed and they start to see the value of the shed and they see the scope of the impact of the shed. Not only is it impacting the men, it's impacting their whole family. And it starts to impact the community when the guys start to do things for the community in terms of any kind of projects, whether it's working with the animal rescue people to develop building dog houses for northern Canada, or building raised garden beds so Indigenous people can grow ceremonial tobacco. It's really the range of stuff is unbelievable what the guys have done across the country.
Awesome. It makes me think like when thinking of bringing the community together, it makes me think of just community libraries and how books are kind of just in different areas. It makes me think of having like a wood box or something where people can also donate some tools in the community. This came to my brain from Stephanie's comment saying that one of the ladies she knows does traditional woodworking and she's made her own toolbox with specific carved out tool spots. So something beautiful and intricate like that might be a nice call to action or just aha moment for some community members as well.
The one of the sheds in Edmonton builds kits for the Glenrose Hospital for their rehab program for different exercises that individuals that are in rehab needing physical therapy. They do that. I saw the Health by Stealth comment that Stephanie put up. The Health by Stealth is sheds are not they're not preachy. So they're not talking, they're not beating guys over the head to get medical checkups and everything, but they subtly integrate it into conversations. They may have posters up in their shed, things like that. So the phrase "health by stealth" is something that's quite common across the country that is used. So getting guys to get checked for prostate cancer, getting diabetes checks, getting their heart rates checked, these kinds of things. And it becomes like a mechanic thing. Hey guys, you take your car in all the time to get checked out. When's the last time you went in and had a health check?
Absolutely. Sheila has a comment, or sorry, a question around if you're aware of any specific automotive med sheds.
We have a shed in Morinville, Alberta, and one of the things that they have been working on is how to integrate restoration, car restoration into their shed. So they've got some guys in their shed that are old car guys, and so they're trying to figure that out. I'm sure there's a shed in the country that does sessions for the community and in different ways. One is of doing the car check. Here are 10 things that you can do for your checking on your car. It's more and more difficult now with everything being computerized, but they do that. But also sheds do workshops for women who would love to be in the shed, but the only reason they want to be in the shed is to learn how to use the tools. They don't want to be involved in the discussions that guys are having. But they want to learn how to use the tools. So the men's sheds do provide sessions on teaching women how to use tools. And there's lots and lots of women who've inherited all these tools, but their husband never let them in the workshop. And so they've got all these tools themselves, and they just want to learn how to use them.
Absolutely. Such a great idea. There was someone who's here and in the chat, they wanted to see if they could speak a little bit to the mechanics of starting a shed. Maybe they have their own experience. Scott, do you want to go for it?
Yeah, thank you. First, I want to appreciate Punch for the work that you've done. And so I'm on the little journey at the beginning of establishing Men's Shed here in Creston, British Columbia. I'm really happy my colleague forwarded this opportunity of the Zoom to me, so I think she's on in her office watching as well. So I won't speak long to it, but I just want all of you to know that it's not as onerous getting these things off the ground as one might imagine. I spun my wheels for quite some time thinking, addressing a need. I worked in public education until I retired, and now I'm working supporting the senior services here in town. And we're seeing huge increase in need from older men for supports, mental health supports, and things of that nature. So I've been trying to think of some way to engage men. And like I say, I was spinning my wheels, but I made a presentation to a local service group here, and it was astonishing how quickly those people were engaged. So I've been speaking to quite a few people, and subsequent to that, I got hold of Men's Sheds BC, spoke to a couple of the fellows in their executive level, and was kind of a little overwhelmed by their enthusiasm. And I kept saying, well, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? And they said, you got to get a room. You got to get, half a dozen to 10 guys there to hear a presentation. And if there's a need and a willingness, we said, we'll give you $1,000 to get started. And then if you get some traction and establish something, there's some subsequent funding that could follow up. And in that meeting to the service club, I had two people come up and offer me cash donations right away. I had another fellow who has a farm just outside of town who has a shed. Like things can happen really quickly. I thought it was going to be a big, big mountain to climb. So where we are in our little journey here is now I'm trying to determine if I can get 6 to 12 guys together. And actually, my notes here reinforce the incredible power of women getting men moving. We know in all aspects of things, but there will be a couple of women from that service club as well who have come up to see me subsequent to that meeting. Thank you. He's excited about the idea of this, and I got to get him out of the house, right? So, I'm not sure all across the country the different programs you're involved in, what have you. It is not a difficult thing to do if you can get that core group of people who at least would sit down and have a cup of coffee and listen to the opportunity. There was a question earlier about where the sheds are, if they're urban or rural, and I think Punch spoke to that. The former president of the BC Men's Sheds encouraged me to not worry about finding a place that's inexpensive or free. He said they have 4 men's sheds in the city of Vancouver, and I think everybody has been hearing about how expensive real estate is in Vancouver, that have been donated to them, that they are not paying any money. And this is in like the west end of Vancouver and extremely expensive places. And like I said, I had the fellow just offer me his shed on his farm that he's just moved to. So if that's we see the potential here for sure. We're hoping to join officially in the next month if we can get this going. But it is not really a big difficult task. Men's Sheds really supportive, and they have their goal, and they will send people who can speak to it directly. So, anyways, thanks for letting me participate here today.
I want to pick up on the involvement of women. The first shed in the world was started by a woman, a group of women, and over 40% of the sheds that are started across the world are started by women. They play the facilitating role, and they don't, as far as the history is concerned, we don't see women trying to dominate the shed movement, but they play a key role in terms of getting their guys out to sheds, helping they may be professional women, social workers who provide support to help a group of guys get going, because they may not have the skills to organize the shed or to know exactly what to do. And the women have played key roles in this. We have had a woman, the key organization in Alberta that has been supportive of us is Healthy Aging Alberta. And one of their, well, Stephanie's a fine example of someone who's been supportive of us, but also Amanda, who has been with me on this journey since about 2013. And she is an ambassador for Men's Sheds. And so we're very thankful for the involvement of women. Uh, we are a little nervous about the she sheds because we know that women are better at organizing these things than men, and so I'm sure that as she sheds become more popular, they're going to rival the number of men sheds across the world. That's it. That's it for me. I'm just thankful that I've got women in my life that are supportive of me in this journey that I've been on with Men's Sheds.
Thanks so much, Punch. This has been such an incredible opportunity for people to learn more about Men's Shed, also apply an intergenerational lens, which we're all passionate about here, and then also think about how we might be able to support someone we love to start a Men's Shed, or support in our roles, whatever our roles are in the community that we work in, to maybe help our community members maybe start something. So this is such a great conversation. We thank you so very much. We'll have some follow-up items that we'll send out. And please feel free to fill in the survey for us that Stephanie's put in the chat as well.
And feel free to join Punch and I. We have another core group, by the way, that is specifically about Men's Sheds. So if you're really resonating with this, we don't have a core group on the national or BC platforms, but you're welcome to join us on the Alberta platform in that space, and hang out and chat with us. We have an event coming up at the end of June here that will get up and running here shortly.
Thank you for joining me in Agatha Christie's library. That is not a picture of my office.
I always wonder about that, actually, Punch.
Could have fooled me.
Yeah.
No, Agatha Christie was very neat. Not one of my highlights.
But yes, thank you so much, Punch. It's been a pleasure as always. We're very grateful for you to join us today. And thank you, everybody. Have a great day. We'll send out the video after so you can have a chance to pass it on if you wanted to share it with folks.